A very good morning to all of you. In the previous topic of the menstrual cycle, we have discussed how the menstrual cycle occurs. In that topic, I told you if the ovum is unfertilized, then it leads to the menstrual cycle, and if the ovum is fertilized, then it goes for the further procedure. So today I am going to discuss with you the very first process after the ovum is fertilized, that is the fertilization. Now in the process of the fertilization, there is a fusion of a sperm, that is the male gamete, with the ovum, that is a female gamete, and this process is known as the fertilization. So fusion of male and female gamete is known as fertilization. Now what happens actually during the coitus? Semen is released by the penis into the vagina, and that process is known as the insemination. So firstly, the process of insemination occurs. Means the male gametes, they are transferred into the female gametes by the penis into the vagina of the female. So the motile sperms, they swim rapidly through the cervix and they enter the uterus. What happens? Motile sperms swim, enter cervix, and they reach to uterus. Now after reaching to the uterus, they move to the ampullary ischemic junction of the oviduct. Now when they come in contact, when the sperms come in contact with the zona pellucida layer of the ovum, they induces the changes in that membrane. What happens? These sperm, they come in contact with the zona pellucida layer of ovum, and they bring about certain changes in that particular layer. What they do, they just block the entry of the additional sperms. When one of the sperm enters in that ovum, they block the entry of the additional sperms. Now after this process, what happens? Okay, I will write here. The enzymes of the acrosomes. Now what will they do? The enzymes of the acrosomes, they help to dissolve this layer and plasma membrane of the ovum, and the sperm head is allowed to enter the cytoplasm of the ovum, that is the secondary oocyte. So enzyme of acrosome, they dissolve this layer and helps the sperm head to reach secondary oocyte, right? So this is what happens, and after that a diploid zygote is formed. After this, a diploid zygote is formed. So let's recall the process once again. What happens in the process of fertilization? It is a process in which there occurs a fusion between the male and the female gamete, and hence the resultant product, that is the diploid zygote, is formed. Now how this all process happens? During the time of coitus, the semen is released from the male organ, that is the penis, to the female organs, that is the vagina, by the process of insemination. Firstly, the process of insemination occurs. After that, these motile sperms, they enter the cervix and they reach the uterus. Once the sperms they reach the uterus, they come in contact with the zona pellucida layer of the ovum and they make the changes in that particular layer. First of all, they block the entry of the sperms, additional sperms in that particular ovum, and then the enzymes of acrosome, they dissolve the layer of zona pellucida and the plasma membrane of the ovum, so that the sperm head is allowed to reach the secondary oocyte, that is the ovum. Then there is a fusion of the male and the female gamete and they form a diploid zygote. So, this is what about the fertilization. Now, after the completion of the fertilization, there started the next process, that is known as implantation. Now, the next process is implantation. Now, after the zygote is formed, these zygotes divide rapidly by the mitotic division and they move through the isthmus of the oviduct towards the uterus, and here it is called the cleavage. As a result, the 2, 4, 8, 16 daughter cells are produced and that are known as the blastomeres. So, zygote divides mitotically, form daughter cells, after the formation of the daughter cells, there occurs cleavage occurs, they form the daughter cells, that daughter cells are known as the blastomeres. Now, the embryo with the 8 to 16 blastomere is known as the morula. The blastomere, that is 8 to 16 blastomere, is known as the morula, and this morula continues to divide and transforms into a large mass of cell that is called blastocyst. ये जो morula है ये divide होता रहता है and then they form a continuous large mass that of cells that is known as blastocyst, which pass further in the uterus. Now, जो blastomeres are in the blastocyst, they are arranged in the two layers. One layer is the trophoblast and another one is the inner mass. These two layers of the blastocyst are there. One is the outer layer that is known as the trophoblast and the another one is the inner layer group of cells that is attached to the trophoblast are called inner cell mass. After this, the trophoblast they get attached to the cells of the endometrium and the inner cell mass it started giving rise to the embryo. This inner mass it gives rise to the embryo. After the attachment, the cells of the endometrium they divide rapidly and they cover the blastocyst and the blastocysts get embedded. Embedded means किसी चीज़ के अंदर fix हो जाना into the endometrium of the uterus, and this process, whole process is known as implantation, and this process of implantation leads to the pregnancy. So what happens after the fertilization? After the fertilization, when the zygote is formed, it divides mitotically in the and moves from the oviduct towards the uterus, and after that when it moves from the oviduct to the uterus by dividing mitotically, there occurs the cleavage, the first cleavage. After the first cleavage, 2, 4, 8, 16 daughter cells are formed. These are known as blastomeres. When the daughter cells or the blastomeres, they are at the stage of 8 to 16 cells, they are known as morula. This morula continues to divide into a large mass and it becomes the blastocyst, which further passes to the uterus. Now this blastocyst have the two layers. One is the trophoblast, that is the outer layer, while the inner layer is known as inner cell mass. Now this trophoblast that get attached to the cells, and the inner cells, they started rising, they give rise to the embryo. After the attachment, the cell of the endometrium starts dividing, they cover the blastocyst and the blastocyst get embedded in the endometrium of the uterus. When the blastocysts get embedded in the endometrium of the uterus, this is known as the implantation, and which further leads to the pregnancy. So in the next topic we will discuss about the pregnancy, embryonic development and some other processes related to this. Thank you students, that's all for today's topic.